Welcome, friends. Welcome back to the kitchen. Welcome back to Sunday morning in the old cookbook show. Today we're going to do a wartime recipe from a wartime cookbook. From the Baker's Chocolate recipes. This was published in 1943, so it's during World War II. And in my collection, I've got several of these Baker's Chocolate cookbooks from this time period. And in my collection, I've got two types of wartime cookbooks. There is the government-produced propaganda cookbook, be it Canada or the United States. I have several of both. And those are very much doom and gloom, doom and gloom, doom and gloom, do your bit. Very sort of terse wording, scaring you into saving and scrimping and giving up on certain things. And then there's this style of cookbook, which far outnumbers the government handbooks, where they take a more gentle approach and say, yeah, things are tight. You may not have access to all of the ingredients, but here are all of the substitutions. Here are all of the things that you can do to still eat well at home, work your way around shortages and rationing. So every recipe in here has substitutions. And one of the things that they say at the very front is, if you don't have butter, so I've got the butter in the mixer, if you don't have butter, any shortening will do. Absolutely any shortening will do. You can substitute vegetable shortening, pork lard, beef, whatever you've got. As long as it's solid at room temperature, go ahead and use it. And that's something that's lost on a lot of people today. They think when they see shortening, it has to be one specific thing. It could be any shortening. The next thing that they talk about is sugar. It calls for a cup of sugar. So I'm going to put that in now. So I'm going to put that in and cream it in with the butter. Now, there were sugar shortages. There was sugar rationing. And they go to great pains in the book to tell you that here's how to substitute corn syrup or honey. Yes, corn syrup and honey have a liquid component, so you just cut down on the liquid component that you're going to use in the cake or the cookies or whatever you're making. I think that's very interesting. And I also think it's very interesting that every recipe pretty much lists with the title how many eggs are in it. Again, eggs were in shorter supply. So that's coming together nicely. We put in 1 egg. In that goes. So we're making something called Creole fudge loaf. Even though it's called a loaf, and you would expect it to be cooked in a loaf pan, it's cooked in an 8x8 cake pan. It's called Creole. No clue why it's called Creole. A lot of recipes down through time, the title doesn't mean anything. They had to call the recipe something. And so in this book, there's a lot of Creole something or others that really contain no Creole, nothing Creole that I can discern anyway. And fudge, well, we'll determine how fudgy it is when we get to the end. So I've got cake flour here. It calls specifically for Swans Down. I just happen to have some in the cupboard. To that, baking powder and salt. And we'll give that a little bit of a mix. And so Baker's Chocolate at this point was owned by General Foods. General Foods owns a whole pile of brands, and anywhere in these cookbooks where they can call out one of their own brands for you to use, they will do that. Now we go in with a little bit of vanilla. Next in is 2 ounces of melted Baker's Chocolate. And so 1 square of Baker's Chocolate is equal to 1 ounce, even though I know they no longer package it that way. There's still a couple of off-brands or store brands available here in Canada that make it in those little squares that they used to be in. If you read the package of the Baker's Chocolate, they give you the conversion. So it's fairly simple to figure out if you can't get the squares anymore. Now, I'm just going to wipe down the inside of the bowl before we move on. It's always a good idea, even with the scraper beater that I have, you still have to scrape down the inside of the bowl. It sort of works, but doesn't work great. Make sure you get it all mixed up. Now, spoon in the flour, a couple spoonfuls, and then alternate with the milk. A couple spoonfuls, and then the milk. Now, I've got an 8x8 cake pan that I have greased and put a parchment sling in so that I can get the cake out easily at the end. In goes the batter. It's a quite nice looking batter. Okay, and we'll smooth that out. The oven is preheated to 325. This gets baked at a lower temperature than the average cake. And there we go. The cake is baked and it's cooling down. The recipe tells me I should make half a recipe of the easy fluffy frosting from page 77. Seems really easy. Egg white, corn syrup, vanilla, and a little bit of salt. So in goes the salt first, and I'm supposed to whip these into peaks, but don't let them get dry. Whipping one egg white is always a bit of a chore because there's really not much here to work with. But I think at this point I'll start drizzling in the corn syrup. "10 to 15 minutes of beating." That's a lot of beating. You could use an electric mixer. The problem, though, I find with if I did this in a stand mixer, one egg yolk isn't enough to get it started, and it just goes nowhere. This isn't so bad. So I think I'm at the point where it's spreadable. This is not a hot day or a hot weather type of frosting. This is definitely a frosting that you put on the cake and then you stick it in the fridge and you keep it chilled. So I'm supposed to add a teaspoon of vanilla. And we'll whip that in, and then we'll get the frosting on the cake.
Hey, Glenn. Oh, that looks pretty good. Hey, friends.
Somehow, this is called...
Okay. Is that marshmallow?
No, it's an unbaked meringue. Essentially what it comes down to is egg white and corn syrup.
Because the corn syrup. That's what made it so glossy.
So glossy.
Okay, so I just want to...
Stick your finger in it and taste it.
Well, I want to see how tacky it is, right?
It's pretty tacky.
It's pretty tacky.
It's not something that you could... it's not something that you could put out on a hot summer day. You're not taking taking this to the family picnic.
No, but let's taste it and see how it goes.
Okay, so...
Woo! Yeah, you're not getting... This is certainly not a pick up and eat kind of...
No.
Okay, I still want to take a good chunk of that to
So this was supposed to bake for an hour at 325. 35 minutes into it, it was overbaked.
Okay, so less...
So less time. And that really is, a function of the difference in ovens between then and now.
So you'd have a very distinct corn syrup flavor to this.
Oh, yeah.
I just ate the icing.
When I licked the whisk.
I licked the whisk.
It was very corn syrupy.
That's okay.
Which you can get around by just using sugar. I mean, they were using corn syrup in 1943 because sugar shortages. No idea why this is Creole. Okay.
And you just disappeared.
Just because it's killing me.
Okay. As much as you say it's overbaked, it really isn't.
It's actually kind of nice.
Yeah.
Okay. Just because.
Oh, you're just going to do this one? Okay. I thought you were going to be brave and do the whole cake all at once. Okay, so I am going to try just the icing, just to see if it changed the flavor of the icing, because I'm that kind of a geek. But I feel like you've now made it okay to take it to the picnic.
Yeah. That solves the picnic problem. Really nice caramely flavor from doing that. So
I'm kind of fascinated because it's still I'm surprised at the cake texture because you said you'd overbaked it.
So at 35 minutes, I would call that slightly overbaked. Still moist. It's still got a really good crumb.
I was expecting it to be, you know, like kind of
really
overbaked.
really
This is
dry.
your description.
So I would say if you put this in 325, start checking it about 20 minutes, you know, with a cake tester like you do. And pull it out as soon as it's barely just got a little bit of crumb sticking to it. Put the frosting on, which is just a meringue. And then, you know, make it nice. And stick it under the broiler.
Not necessarily Glen's model.
Yeah, I mean, I went out.
We all know about Glen and icing, right?
Yeah.
So that being said, the cake is a great. It's a pretty decent cake. Like it is moist, considering it's been overbaked. It has, you know, a fairly light chocolate flavor to it.
Yeah.
It's not like an overbearing chocolate.
Yep.
You could put any kind of ice. You could put a butter icing on it. You could not ice it. Like you got options.
Yeah. But I'm coming around to that with a little bit of obviously we think it was pretty good. The piece is gone.
It is gone.
Okay, so 1943 Creole fudge loaf. Even though it's not a loaf, it's a cake.
And even though it may or may not be Creole.
It's
We didn't name it, my friends. We did not name this.
It's really good. It's really good. Use that meringue on top and burn it around the edges, and you'll be really happy.
Okay.
Thanks for stopping by.
We'll see you again soon.